Welcome back to On the Rise as Canada heads into match day 3 against El Salvador with a great chance to send themselves into the quarterfinals and bounce back from a rather flat performance against Curacao with Jesse Marsch returning to the touchline. And I truly believe Canada will bounce back in a very exciting fashion against El Salvador with Jesse Marsch having a major impact. And I'm going to break it down, guys, and give you guys my thoughts and predictions, of course, with the lineups and the score. But before we do, drop into the comments. Let me know your thoughts in the lead up to the match, as well as your predicted lineup and score. Smash that like button, guys. It really helps with the video and the channel. And hit that sub button as we move closer to 700 subscribers. But this is a very exciting opportunity for the Canadian men's national team after a disappointing match against Curacao, but one that can be rectified, one that I expect Canada to bounce back from in a great way with Jesse Marsch returning to the touchline. Playing against an El Salvador side that is only coming into this match with 1 point with a draw against Curacao and a 2-0 loss to Honduras. This is also an El Salvador side who has only won one of their last 5 matches, which came against Anguilla in a 3-0 victory. An El Salvador side that aren't on great form, while Canada is coming into this game ready to bounce back with their manager back on the touchline and with spirits high and ready to prove themselves once again. And yes, it was a shaky performance against Curacao, but it is nothing to get too down on. Yes, it was a bit flat. Yes, it was a bit stale, but there was still points that Jesse Marsch will take from this game and build upon. There was always going to be that flat game, that disappointing performance per se under Jesse Marsch coming eventually, and it came, but it's how you react to it. It is how you bounce back from it, and I really believe this Canadian men's national team will do a fantastic job against El Salvador, and having Jesse Marsch back in the touchline will have a huge effect. I think his on-field management, his tactics during the game are going to have a big time effect during this match against El Salvador, and I truly think we will see it on full display, because this is a must-win game for the Canadian men's national team if they want to clinch first place, if they want to go into the quarterfinals finishing on 7 points off the back of 2 wins and 1 draw, which would make for a very good group stage. Not all teams always come away with 3 wins, and tying against Curacao is a great learning experience. It is a great game that Jesse Marsch can look at, dive into, and learn from in many different ways. There wasn't always going to be highs, there's going to be some lows, and yes, that game was won. But the big thing is, Canada didn't lose. They still managed to get that result, and as long as they can take that learning experience onto El Salvador and have a very good performance against this side, it is going to be a learning game that everyone looks back on and says it was just a bump in the road, which is exactly what I think that draw against Curacao truly was. But this game against El Salvador for Canada is going to be a big one, and head-to-head wise, Canada has done well against El Salvador. 3 wins, 2 draws, and 1 loss to El Salvador in their history across 6 matches. Their last 2 games against El Salvador, which is of course the 2 key ones, were in World Cup qualifying, where Canada beat El Salvador 2-0 and 3-0 back in 2022 and 2021. But this is a completely different situation. This is a completely new year and a different era in general. And with Jesse Marsch returning to the touchline, with Mauro Biello taking that back seat, that back roll, no confusion with the substitutions, this is a great time for Jesse Marsch to come back to the touchline and get an opportunity to help his side advance to the quarterfinals. And I think this is a great match for Canada to play in that 3rd game, and especially for a bounce back opportunity. And there's so many reasons why I think this Canadian national team will bounce back against El Salvador. They want to prove themselves. They want to show that they are that team that's going to go out and win the tournament. And yes, things have gone against them. There's been 2 injuries to Jonathan Osorio. There's been an injury to Ali Ahmed, with both of them exiting and leaving the club, which we will get into, and returning to their clubs, which we will get into during the predicted lineup. But Jesse Marsch still is a very good team to choose from. Still a very good group of players to choose from. And yes, there's a couple positions now that are rather thin, but there's still a very strong Canadian men's national team that Jesse Marsch has at his availability. And compared to El Salvador, this Canadian team should be able to beat El Salvador rather easily. Yes, we underestimated Curacao, but I personally thought Curacao was always going to be that second team, in my opinion, who are going to look and advance in second place in this group. They were in my predictions to finish in second, and I really think that will happen. But El Salvador, for me, was always the weakest of this group. And no offense to El Salvador, but they don't have the players of Luis Palma, of Kyoto, and of what Honduras and Curacao have, or a manager like Dick Advocat. This is an El Salvador side that aren't on great form, of course. Like I said, one win in their last 5, and they're running into a Canadian side who need to bounce back, who need to prove themselves heading into a quarterfinals, that this side has the pressure and probably feels the pressure that they have to go out and win this tournament, but they all talk about winning this tournament constantly, and I really think they truly will do that. And beating El Salvador is just another step in the right direction, and I think that will happen. But we're going to dive into the lineup, guys, because like I said, we now see no Jonathan Osorio in this squad. We see no Ali Ahmed, which is a big blow, and there's still no Stefan Eustáquio at this tournament as he's with FC Porto and might return with FC Porto, potentially being eliminated. But this leaves Jesse Marsch with, of course, less options and more so on the wing, because Ali Ahmed had a great game in that first opener and is really starting to prove himself as a lock on one of those wings alongside Tajon Buchanan. And now with no Ali Ahmed, Jaden Nelson and Jacob Schaffelberg have true chances to step into the limelight and prove themselves at one of the winger positions alongside Tajon Buchanan. But we're going to start, of course, with the goalkeeper and who I think Jesse Marsch will go with, or who I personally want to see in net. I think Maxime Crépeau will get the start against El Salvador. I think it's a much needed and much deserved start for Maxime Crépeau. And if Jesse Marsch does decide to go with Dane St. Clair for a third game straight in the group stage, I think that's a real statement from Jesse Marsch that he looks at Dane St. Clair currently, at this moment in time, at his number 1. If he goes with Dane 3 straight, it's a true statement, but I really believe he will change it up. He will go with Maxime Crépeau. He will go with the elder statesman in net, the one who has a bit more experience, the one who's done it, been there a bit more. And I really think Maxime Crépeau deserves this chance. He deserves this opportunity to at least get one game in the group stage and a chance to prove himself, even if he only gets 1 or 2 opportunities throughout the match to come up big. But moving on to the back line from right to left, it's Richie Laryea, Luc de Fougerolles, Joel Waterman, and Zorhan Bassong. For me, let's start with the right back, and Richie Laryea, I think, will get the opportunity, bring in some more experience, give Nico Seeger a rest ahead of the quarterfinals, make it a little bit of a rotation in there between Seeger and Richie Laryea. But Laryea does deserve that opportunity. He deserves the chances, and especially at his primary position at right back. Play him in his best position, play him alongside Luc de Fougerolles for some leadership, and behind who I have as the winger, where he can get that ability to make those overlaps, as Richie Laryea does very well against a side that more than likely will sit back and soak up pressure, and give Nico Seeger that much-deserved rest ahead of some important games further on in the tournament. Luc de Fougerolles deserves a start, deserves to come back into this lineup, and is a no-brainer alongside Joel Waterman. Joel Waterman, yes, had a poor game against Curacao, but when paired with a Derek Cornelius, a Moise Bombito, or a Luc de Fougerolles, has looked very good. So give Joel Waterman that opportunity next to Luc de Fougerolles, unless Derek Cornelius is available for this match. Next to him, I have Zorhan Bassong. Zorhan Bassong, against Curacao, still had a very decent game, came up unfortunate having that deflection, putting the ball in the back of the net over Dane St. Clair. But outside of that, when he's been given the opportunity, he has done very well and deserves that chance, because he is truly the only out-and-out left back on this roster right now. So give him that shot once again. We're going to move on to the midfield, and from right to left, it's Tajon Buchanan, it's Ismail Kone, Mathieu Choinière, and Jaden Nelson. Tajon Buchanan gets the start. He has to get the start and earn more minutes. And I think under Jesse Marsch, Jesse is going to want to start him, and he's going to want to see it once again in a very important game against El Salvador, where Canada has the opportunity to win and lock down first place with 3 points. Because if Honduras beats Curacao, we could be in second place, of course. So you got to go out and beat El Salvador and play Tajon Buchanan let him make those runs, dribble with the ball, have Richie Larea bomb on around him with two very exciting options on the right-hand side. Next to him, we got Ismail Kone partnering Mathieu Choinière in the midfield. I think it's a no-brainer. Choinière has to come in as that Stephen Eustáquio partner because we saw the imbalance between Nathan Saliba and Ismail Kone against Curacao, with not having a predominant six really played dividends in that match against Curacao. So play Mathieu Choinière in that Stephen Eustáquio role, and Ismail Kone. Give Nathan Saliba the rest. He's had back-to-back games, played very well in both of them. Give him that much-needed rest, and let Ismail Kone go out, play 65, 70 minutes, prove himself in a big game, a must-win game against El Salvador, and partner him with Mathieu Choinière and let him have the free roaming ability in that midfield. And on the left-hand side, I got Jayden Nelson. Jayden Nelson deserves this start. Yes, he had a decent game previously, but he's proved it with a decent performance against Cote d'Ivoire, and his form for Vancouver Whitecaps truly shows why he should be starting for the Canadian men's national team in the absence of Ali Ahmed. Replace his club teammate, gives himself the true chance to step in and prove himself why he should still be in conversations to start out ahead of Ali Ahmed, why that position isn't a lock. Jayden Nelson, with the absence of Ali Ahmed, can go in and prove himself and have some big performances, really makes that position up for grabs. So give Jayden Nelson that chance and let him prove himself against El Salvador. Up front, I'm going with Jonathan David and Promise David. Yes, you could ref Jonathan David and play Kyle Larin alongside Promise David, because I now think Kyle Larin is the backup for Jonathan David. I really believe that when Jesse Marsch is the manager, and play Promise David. If you go with Jonathan, if you go with Kyle, give Jonathan the rest if you need to. I'm fine with that, because Promise David deserves this start. Tony Oluwase had a very poor performance against Curacao. Play Promise David next to Kyle Larin or next to Jonathan David. Give him that chance. Give him that opportunity now in a big game, in a must-win opportunity. I've said that a lot, but that is a true statement. That is something that is very correct. It is a must-win opportunity for this Canadian men's national team. And Promise David would finally have a game that's in a pressure cooker situation, not just in a new tournament or in a game where we're 3-4-0 up. This is a game that he starts and where Canada has to win. And guys, as my score prediction, I do have us winning 3-1. That's been a trend in the comment section of you guys saying 3-1 as well, from Afrikaans and others saying 3-1 in previous matches, and I truly believe that will be the scoreline in this game. I'd like to see a 3-0, but I think with Jesse Marsch back on the touchline, with the need to bounce back in this game after a flat result, albeit disappointing, but an opportunity to learn from it, a blip in the road, a low performance, it's a great way to come back and really prove yourselves that you're still Canada. You're still that team that everyone expected to go out and win the Gold Cup, and I think they will do that with a 3-1 performance. Hopefully goals from Promise David, from Jayden Nelson. I'll even throw in Ismail Kone as well as my 3 predictions for goal scorers, guys. We're going a bit out there this match, but I think it'll be a very exciting game. Albeit the last game was flat, I just think that's a bump in the road. I think we were all a bit overreactionary, and I still want to see rotation, just not a lot of it. And I'm very excited to see how Canada does against El Salvador, but I'd love to hear your guys' opinions and thoughts down below in the comments. Make sure to smash that like button, guys, because the support has been absolutely incredible. And hit that sub button, guys, for all the best Canadian men's national team content as we continue to build the best Canada community on YouTube. And I'll see you guys for the next one. Peace.